Okay, it's going on.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. What's up, cuz? Dan in the house.
Going on
Cool,
with
cool seat of one. I keep forgetting this a beautician or a guy in the hair industry with the name Cool C. Don't know him personally. I'm sure he probably did some things to legalize that name. So I'll officially be going by Cool C DA1. So Cool C the one moving forward on our podcast. But anyway, we got those technicalities out of the way. How you doing today again, man? I'm sorry.
man. I'm doing
So
all
Cool
right.
C
I'm
the
good.
one moving forward on. All right. Just a little bit of technical difficulties there. Bear with us. We engineering and doing the podcast ourselves.
What happened?
And if I haven't told you so much for your efforts to make these podcasts what they are every week.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get started. It's June the 14th, 2020. Got a lot of stuff to talk about today. We won't be on here for 2 hours for anybody that's listening. I have some other obligations, so we'll keep it. I don't even want to use the word short, but
Mhm.
we'll keep it to a decent time today. Our goal is to not take up your whole evening. But I must say, man, looking back on some of the previous podcasts, we've had some really interesting topics. Which again today we will continue that on. But I got an announcement to make in regards to the podcast, something that you and I just talked about. And as many of you know, we have Athena Protection Services, which is a company that Dan here is the founder of, and I'm also a partner in the company. And you've seen that Athena Protection name a lot within the podcast. But when you come up with a podcast, you want to have a name that you know fits what it is that trying to accomplish with your podcast. And after looking at numerous podcasts, uh, Dan the man here, I'll let you tell our listeners not only how they can get in touch with us, but before you do that, let's introduce people to the name that we finally came to agree on for the podcast.
Right. So we agreed on Soapbox Sunday, and the reason we do that is because we like to talk about whatever we want, and we have a habit of getting, into our moods and things that kind of pull our heartstrings. We like to speak on it at length. So the reason, I thought it was a good idea to come up with the Soapbox Sunday is for that particular reason. It's because Carl always say he jumping on his soapbox, and then I have a habit of jumping on mine, so I thought the name was perfect to go with.
Perfect. I love it. So going forward, we name of the podcast is Soapbox Sundays. Soapbox Sundays. 2 words.
Right.
But that's what's up, man. I love it. Most definitely fits our platform, fits our personality. But again, let's let the listeners know how they can get in touch with us.
So they can get in touch with us on any social media platform at Athena Protection Service, or they can give us a call at 800-951-4866. That's 1-800-951-4866. And I would like to say thank you to everybody that's on the podcast right now checking us out. Please do us a favor, hit that like button, hit that share button, let people know we in here talking about something good.
Awesome. And tune in or type a comment in there. We'll try to get to it on the show so we can hear your opinions on topics that we're covering. So without further ado, as I like to say, let's get into today. If you want to start out, let's talk about the latest corona numbers. If you have
Yeah, I got them.
those. All
So,
right.
all right, all right, so
I'm sorry, you ready?
yeah, I'm ready. So for right now, we looking pretty promising in Michigan. We continuing to see the cases go down. We seeing the deaths go down per day, and they falling week by week. So this past week, we saw about an average of 20 people dying per day, and we had about 180 cases per day in Michigan. These numbers are kind of happening as we begin to open things up in Michigan, and and get people moving around, kind of congregating with each other. I'm seeing bars opening up and different establishments open up as needed because, you know, the economy need that boost. But at the same time, we don't have a cure for COVID-19, and, you know, people are it's still tractable. So I would like to just say that people need to be careful. We've been seeing, uh, while we doing well, states like Florida, Texas, Arizona are starting to see significant increases. They're getting about 1,800 cases per day, and as high as 2,600 cases in Florida on the 13th of this month in one day. So this is pretty much causing people to move with caution, which they should do. When Florida opened up, a ton of people went down there to go to the beach and vacation and do all kind of things a couple of weeks ago. So that could be fallout from what happened when everybody got around each other. So I would still say to be safe and careful out there. Our total cases right now for Michigan is 59,801 total cases that we had, and a total of 5,767 people have died in Michigan, most coming from Wayne County. So keep that in mind. Most of the people that we talk to that listen to this podcast are in Wayne County, Michigan. So be careful out there if you have to go to work or go out and be among each other. And as far as the US total, we have 2.12 million cases in the United States, and 117,000 people have died from COVID-19. So just to give you a perspective of how large that number is and how significant this is something to kind of keep in mind.
Wow, so said a mouthful there. What I took from that, a couple of things. First of all, we know this is real.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we talk about this all the time. Yes, you know, the governor has lifted a ton of restrictions. We're starting to move similar to how we moved before. As we know, things are going to continue to be different. So I won't say as we get back to norm, because this is the new norm. But with that being said, you know, people are still dying from this. People are still catching this. There is not a vaccine for it. So we're nowhere near out of the woods. I think we feel good. The sun's out longer. The weather's been, you know, pretty good. We've had some really nice days. It was really hot for a little stretch there. But man, today, yesterday, and upcoming week, we got some really mild weather. I think we've been over the mid 70s. I'm out near the water. I've been at different places, and people moving like this pandemic is over. And when I say the pandemic, I'm sorry, the COVID-19 is over, and it's not.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I always say we read those numbers, and even when we talk about, you know, less than 100 people died today, let's remember how shocked we were when this first started up in Michigan back at the beginning of the month. You know, I remember it started out with 2 cases.
Right.
I want to say we probably went a few days thereafter before anybody died from it. And I just remember how devastating that was when we were hearing the numbers and we were talking about, okay, we jumped from 2 to 8 and then to, you know, 10 and plus, and those things were really scaring us. And I'm not here to scare anybody, but just remind you that we need to continue to stay safe. Those of you that have compromised immune systems, continue to be safe. Talking to all of my diabetic listeners, as well as high blood pressure. You know, you're pricking your fingers if you're diabetic, checking your glucose levels, and, you know, make sure you're using hand sanitizer. You know, you just continue to stay safe out there, people. This is not over. I know the numbers are low, but until there's no numbers from this, I'm sure, you know, like in the movie, people die every day, but not from coronavirus. And that's when I'll feel satisfied, when we can go 2, 3, 4, or 5 days without anybody dying from it, or even, you know, catching it. So just let's stay focused, continue to social distance where you can. Just because these governments have told us everything is normal, as you just spoke of, you named more than 5 states that have seen an increase in numbers. And some of those states didn't even have bad numbers in the start. I know Arizona, for example, never even really had high numbers, and they're experiencing, you know, if I'm not mistaken, a 20 or 30% increase
Right. Some of them have minimal shutdown, if anything.
Exactly. So we did some of the right things here in Michigan. Let's continue to be smart, but more than anything, to again people who may have, those uh, diabetes, high blood pressure, uh, you know, respiratory issues, our older generation, and just us as a culture, we've been hit harder than a lot of others with
Hmm.
this virus. So continue to stay safe, man. I could beat this horse all day, but
Right. Let me move on to something real quick that's been going on in Michigan in particular, and that's
okay,
unemployment fraud. Um, if you
man,
get if you get caught doing unemployment fraud, you have to not only pay back the money you took, but 4 times that amount in penalties. So it's not really worth it, for people to get involved with unemployment fraud, especially right now trying to capitalize on the situation that's going on. Michigan yesterday resumed 140,000 unemployment cases that was following fraud concerns. About 2.2 million Michigan residents have filed for unemployment since March. That's a lot of people, and that's a lot of people who may or may not be struggling. We don't know. I would assume that the fraud is a small number, but this has a tremendous impact on the economy overall. People are kind of struggling to get around, their daily lives, the things that they need. It's 44 million people have filed for unemployment over the last 12 weeks in the United States alone. And we seeing businesses close down because of what's going on in the economy because we not out there spending our money, which should give you some idea of the kind of power you hold as consumers. So we see in sectors like rental car businesses, airlines, furniture businesses, art van, car part manufacturers, retailers like J.C. Penney and oil companies, all, somewhat filing bankruptcy or having money issues because they billions of dollars in debt right now. So
Chuck E. Cheese.
yeah. So um, if you don't need unemployment, don't file for it. Or if you don't, it's not worth the penalty if you get caught doing it. So and there's been a significant issue in Michigan where they think almost 340,000 cases might be fraud. So just something to consider to people out there. You're going to deal with a heavy penalty if you get caught.
Not only that, and of course, I'm sure none of our listeners are the ones that are doing that, and people that are doing it think they're getting away with something. You also are clogging up the pipeline for people who truly need this unemployment
Right.
because of the struggle that they're going through. I don't want to start pointing the fingers and saying, people, it's a lot of money out there, and or it appears to be a lot. We talked about on previous podcasts, people making upwards of $800-900 a week. So
Hmm.
they getting paid every 2 weeks, or people are, literally bringing home almost $4,000 with no taxes out of it a month.
Right.
So I'm not shocked that people are doing what they're doing, but just know that there's some huge penalties, and they will find you. I mean, it may take a day, it may take a week, it may take a month, it may take a year, but they will find you, and you will pay that money back one way or another.
Right.
You're either gonna get down or you're gonna lay down, but you're gonna get that money back. So again, I don't know what you need to do. Look within yourself, look in the mirror, do whatever you need to do, but no, this ain't the way to go about it. You stealing and you're gonna get caught, and shame on you. And another tip for the people that are on unemployment, because we know why people are on this unemployment. Just know that if I'm not mistaken, I haven't been on unemployment in a long time, knock on wood. You're gonna pay taxes on all of that money at the end of the year.
Hmm.
They give you the straight money, and they will tax that money going into 2021. So just keep that in mind as well. And again, we're not saying that, people who are that need this unemployment or think they need it, you don't deserve it. But if you didn't work, or whatever you're doing fraudulent, the made up paperwork that you use to get it, stop it. It's
Right.
gonna bite you in the ass, and it's gonna hurt. It's like getting a rabies shot. It hurts. What else you got there, man?
So, man, we can jump into. Well, first, I think we can talk about what happened in Atlanta. Let's do that real quick.
Yeah, get us up to speed on what you're talking about there in Atlanta, because there's a lot going on down in hot Atlanta.
It's a ton going on in Atlanta. So Friday night, so we 3 weeks in, people protesting the George Floyd murder. So Friday night, cameras were rolling from tons of cell phones. A man named Rashard Brooks fell asleep in the drive-thru at Wendy's, and he had been drinking. You know, they called the police on him, get his car out the drive-thru, and you know the officers get there, perform a field sobriety test, and give him a breathalyzer to determine, you know, if he was, you know, able to drive or not. He failed the breathalyzer, and then when officers went to arrest him, he decided that he didn't want to go to jail. So he started fighting with the officers. They get into a struggle. They fall on the ground, and Mr. Brooks disarmed one of the officers of his taser. And while they're trying to tase him, he get up and run away, and he's running off with the officer's taser. Officer begins to chase him. Now, it's 2 officers on the scene. One of the officers chasing him with a taser, and then he has the other officer's taser, and he's running away. So as he's running away, he fires the taser at the officer that's chasing him. The officer drops his taser and pulls out his firearm and shoot Mr. Brooks 3 times. He fires 3 shots and strikes Mr. Brooks. Mr. Brooks ultimately dies after surgery at the hospital. This turned into some unrest in Atlanta, and the police chief yesterday resigned, and the officer was fired, and the other officer who was on scene was on administrative leave at this point.
Wow, that's deep, man. And again, for all of those that's going to say, I don't understand why you don't just comply. It's almost like that statement, you know, what about black on black crime? This gentleman most definitely deserved to be arrested.
Right.
For number 1, drunk driving or driving under the influence. Let's use the professional terms, DUI, or driving impaired, however you want to say it. Then on top of it, he gets into an altercation with the police officers and steals a taser. Now, from what I'm understanding, a taser, not what I'm understanding, what I know, a taser, once you shoot it, you would have to reload it in order to use it again. So it's kind of a one-shot deal. Now, once the tasers are embedded in someone.
Yeah, that's for the prongs. Once you shoot somebody with a taser and the prongs hit them, you can still hit them with the taser if you up on them.
Right, you can turn up the intensity.
Yeah, you can still tase them directly with the taser. But I mean, that's probably not gonna kill you.
Because, you know, there is a video circulating out there of a man who, and we know that sometimes people, and I forget the specific term, when they want to commit suicide, death by officer, you know, they provoke an officer into, you know, happen to fire on them by raising a firearm or some type of weapon on them. But, you know, we can Sunday or Monday morning quarterback on this. But all I know is there are many other people in those situations that could have dealt with that differently.
Right. I mean, it was 2 on 1.
I felt gone out and shoot 3 times.
Yeah.
And so their life was in jeopardy, and there was 2 of them and 1 of him. With a taser that was already deployed is my point.
Right.
You know, and the amount of deadly force that was used, you know, you fired 3 times. I just feel like, and again, that's me Monday morning quarterback, and I just feel like there was other ways that could have been handled, which of course is why the protests are going on and those things needed to happen.
Right.
Tell me what you feel about it. What you think with your previous experience.
Well, I don't think they should have. It's always dangerous to try to tase somebody in the middle of trying to arrest them. So I am not a fan of that at all. It's just like I'm not a fan of people trying to pepper spray somebody while you're trying to arrest them, because you might tase the officer or you will definitely pepper spray your partner. So I'm completely against using that kind of force. I think it was two of them. They should have been able to control them, and it should have ended there. But again, I wasn't there, and I don't think it was necessary for him to shoot his weapon at the man while he was running away, even if he fired a taser at him. So, but that's just me. That's my opinion. That's where I'm coming from with it. I don't feel like that was something that was necessary. So, but in that moment, like I'm not in that moment. He was in that moment. He was telling the guy, "Don't reach for the taser. Don't take the taser." He shoot him with the taser. The officer ended up, I think, shot Mr. Brooks with the taser, and then he ultimately gets up and was able to disarm one of the officers and run off, which is a problem if you already had him on the ground. So um, I'm just not sure about that situation, and I'm not confident in the way that they handled that at all.
The Wendy's that they kept showing on the news that was burned down, I'm assuming that this Wendy's is the Wendy's that where this altercation begun.
Yeah, so I'm not understanding why you burn the Wendy's down. The Wendy's didn't have anything to do with the altercation at all. Um, he was asleep in the Wendy's parking lot, blocking not the parking lot, but in the drive-through, blocking people from ordering food. So they kept having to drive around him so they could order their food and do what they needed to do. His car was in the way, was asleep, and people couldn't wake him up. So they called the police. They did what they were supposed to do.
And the reason I brought up that Wendy's is because today I saw footage early this morning. Someone caught the individual that started the fire at Wendy's, and not that it matters because right now we're trying to focus on making sure that we get treated equally. But the person that started the fire, from what I seen, was a white woman.
Okay.
Because right now during these riots, I feel like there is a separate agenda going on within that to stir up a lot of the emotions. But there's footage of, and I could be wrong, there's footage of a white woman starting that fire, just FYI.
Okay.
And the only reason I bring that up, I'm not trying to split hairs here and at this point, but just know that, for our listeners, I feel like they need to know that there's things that are being calculated within these protests to try to take away from what I feel at this point the protests have been. Because I know for a fact, with the exception of this and any other new situations that arise, and we can't even keep up with them because that's not the only one that's happening since the last time we did a podcast. That's just the freshest one.
You got to make sure that
what,
lady didn't work for Wendy's, and she trying to,
right.
they might be trying to get some insurance money or something and capitalize on the situation. So I think it all something that got to be looked into and investigated properly.
Right. But protesters continue to protest, stand up for what you feel needs to happen in this country. I am seeing some swift things. And if you don't mind, I want to kind of change gears on the topic while we're talking about protests.
Okay.
And talking about, I know before we got on in our production meeting, we talked a little bit about LeBron James and the NBA. And before I get into the NBA, give you a chance because you was a little more up on it. Talk about some of the things that LeBron James is doing with his platform as an NBA superstar, megastar.
I know that they're starting a voting rights group, LeBron James and some other NBA players, mostly because of what just happened in Georgia, where you saw the predominantly Black communities having issues with voting locations, voting machines. So I think they saw that issue on top of what happened in that governor's race with Stacey Abrams, where they saw tons of attempts at voter suppression. So they are banding together, him and a few other groups of NBA players, so that they can attack this voting rights issue head on that they're having in Georgia and other places around the country.
So he's not going to shut up and just dribble.
No. No, I'm
He's
not.
going to continue. He's going to
No.
continue to use that platform. While we're talking about the NBA, we all know that they announced a few days ago that they wanted to start the regular season back up the end of July with a limited amount of games being played before they would start the playoffs, and kind of extending this on. If I'm not mistaken, the season would go through October. You know, in the new season, they're talking about pushing it out to maybe right around Christmas time, which I personally don't really watch a lot of basketball until around Christmas. I feel like that's the official start when the games start being on, you know, major networks
Right.
during major times. But I want to talk briefly about that and see if you've heard or your thoughts on some NBA players not feeling this. They don't want to come back for numerous reasons. Because let me set this up before you respond. Right now, what they want to do is all of the teams would be down in Florida, and they all going to be on a complex. Let's call it a dome type of situation where they're going to be quarantined together for 2 months.
Okay.
And a lot of players are like, hey, number one, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be away from my family that long. Number two, I'm not ready to go back out here and you know, put myself in a situation where I could catch the virus. We know it went through the NBA. That's where I first realized it was real when they literally stopped the game before it started, Utah Jazz game, and was like, hey,
Right.
I ain't never seen nothing like that where a game got canceled. So, there's still safety concerns. But over and beyond the safety concern, some of the players, i.e. Kyrie Irving, to name a few,
He
if I'm not
injured.
mistaken,
What is he
Kevin
talking?
Durant. No, hear me out. So what they're talking about is, hey, with our current temperature in the country and with the unjust and the demands for things to change, are suggesting that they utilize that huge NBA platform that they work for to show solidarity and not play until some things are changed. And of course, there's going to be a ton of mixed emotions because in the NBA, we all say, these are, arrogant millionaires. Well, everybody in the NBA is not quite a millionaire yet. Although they make more money than the average person, they make a ton of money, and we won't get into that. But you got the younger or the newer contracted players who don't make as much money as, say a LeBron James. So,
Right.
the back and forth in the league is right now, of course you mega stars can, you can sit out for the next 2 years and ain't gonna change your bank account. But for us younger players, so my point is we're getting into this where we can't get the solidarity together as a league to say, hey, let's hold these owners' feet to the fire and demand some changes and utilizing that platform. Because right now we all are sick without having sports on. But I'll be okay, me personally. I'll be personally okay if we have players who say, you know what, we're not gonna come back out and do this because there's still work to be done, and until we can see some of those things. I would want them to have a specific set of demands, and I would stand behind it if they can voice those and be articulate with it, which I'm sure they will be. But hey, if that's what it takes, and I'm a swift switch gears here a little bit and talk about the NFL, man.
Before
So
you
we
do
know
that,
that.
what
Yes,
change do they want made? What are they talking about?
I'm going to do the research on that, but
Okay.
just most definitely trying to make some changes within the way things are ran in the NBA. This
Okay.
is not the collective bargaining agreement, but I do know Chris Paul is one of the people who has said himself, which for those of you that don't know, Chris Paul is the president of the NBA Association for the players. And he even is mentioning it. So we'll come back with more details on it. I didn't get a
Okay.
chance today to get them all because this just started coming out as late as Friday evening and yesterday, and I wasn't able to get the updates. But just know that the NBA is not just getting ready to roll back out as they planned. Looks like at this point, because it's really about a 40% of the players that I'm hearing are have concerns one way or the other about playing under the guidelines that they've set forth.
Mm-hmm.
But moving on to the NFL, you know, the NFL, we've had some issues with the way the NFL has done things all the way back in 2016. You and I, you know, we huge football fans, and kind of walked away from that fiasco with Colin Kaepernick.
Mm-hmm.
You know, him kneeling and for exactly what is going on today, which ironically, you've got tons of NFL players and people saying, hey, we get it now. You know, I guess I'll say it's better late than never that, yes, you finally getting it, but the frustration that many of us had with the way, number one, Colin Kaepernick was being portrayed and what they were trying to deflect and take away from the primary focus. I won't say try, they did it. They made it about a flag. They made it about veterans. Our own current president called them sons of bitches, which that really bothered me. I don't know if I've said that on the podcast. I want that to be on record. That right there bothered me because I felt like the president kind of bullied some of these already. I won't call them to the current concerns in our country, and also was bullied into thinking that it was just a disrespect to a flag or veterans by silently kneeling to say we've got to do something about the injustice that happened to Black people encountering the police more often than not. So now the NFL has came out and said we understand that it wasn't the right thing to focus on. So they pretty much said they fucked up. Roger Goodell, the NFL commissioner, said, look, we effed up. We made a mistake with, you know, how we dealt with that. And a lot of people were outraged, like, well, apologize to, you know, Cap, you know, why you doing that? Give him a job back in the NFL. So I wanted to, you know, give you a chance to tell me how you feel about number one, should they apologize to him? Because I know me and you kind of, we talked about this back then, and I know for a fact that you didn't participate in, you know, being a part of the NFL that whole season. I can't say that I did it, not because of the political stand, just I've been watching it, and but again, that's a side point. But I know that, you know, a lot of us had our feelings about that, and we felt very strongly about it, as I mentioned. So tell me what you think about the commissioner coming out and saying they was wrong, and even if you have any input on some of the things that have been said over the last week about the NFL.
So I don't think the commissioner meant shit he said. The apology was made because of what's going on right now, the heat of the moment, and, you know, they trying to save face. I don't think that they felt like they did the wrong thing. I think they did what they wanted to do and what they felt like was right for them and for the league that they want the league to represent. I've always agreed with a peaceful protest from Colin Kaepernick or anybody else that's protesting. I didn't think it was disrespectful to the flag. He got the idea to kneel from a former Green Beret who was a veteran that was on his team. So he got some guidance from a veteran and was told to take that particular stance, and he took it in the face of police brutality, and not just police brutality, but people, unarmed Black men being murdered by the police and no accountability being had after those murders take place. So that's what the kneeling was about. It didn't have anything to do with the flag, because there is no justice for all. So that was his point for kneeling and trying to put out there that everybody, you know, wants to have some form of justice, and we just wasn't getting that. So now that we saw several instances of people killing unarmed people or Black people over the course of the last 4 years, and nothing happening to some of those people. And a lot of those police officers, you know, are still on the job, or, you know, nothing ended up happening to them. So with this particular case happening, I think it kind of highlights, you know, what he was kneeling for, what he was standing for, And people are pointing that out now. So the NFL was in defense mode and had to say something. But
Right.
I don't believe that he meant what he said. You know, people say things now because we are all judged and prosecuted in the court of public opinion and not necessarily in the court of law.
Right, because I'd be interested to some of the owners in the NFL who were so vocal, and I just can't go on without mentioning one in particular, and that would be Jerry Jones of the Dallas Cowboys owner,
Mm-hmm.
and how he threatened his players and said they won't play for that team no more if they kneel. So I hope every player on that team get on the knee because I want to see what he gonna do, and that's how I felt about it. The protest back being kind of like what the NBA is trying to do, but you know, it kind of made me go back and we talked about it briefly on a podcast where, people are questioning, why we can't get together, why when these things are happening, only, at one point they were talking about men not being, strong enough and banding together and going up against the police, black men in particular. And I know it's like, wait a minute, which way are we going? I'm gonna stay on the street, I promise. On
Okay.
topic on the same street. But we,
Okay.
we typically want to challenge people for what they did or didn't do. So I want to say, without sounding like I'm being hypocritical, I feel like NFL and NBA players, especially the black ones in both of those sports, which we know is a very, very high number. I don't think either of those sports can continue if the black players take a stand and say, look, we're not going to move forward until this, or that is done. And those demands need to be articulated and they need to really, spark some change within those two sports in the country. I know it's tough. I talked about some of these NBA players and NFL players not making as much money, but I'd say on average, even the lowest paid, because I know there is limits in both of those sports. If I'm not mistaken, in both of them might be fact check minimum substantial to play a sport that they love. And I know that the owners make a ton of money off of it. But my point is, players are truly serious. And the only reason I say this, because I think back to the Donald incident with the LA Clippers, was caught on tape by his little side piece, racist. He said some things that were pretty upsetting, and it okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you back now.
Yeah, I blanked out for a second. As I was saying, it took the league by storm, and I was really shocked that those Clipper players at the time would even go out there and play a game. I felt like they all should, not only that team, but everybody should have protested until he was gone.
Right.
His comments again, they were on audio, so couldn't be avoided.
Right.
So with that point being made, I just feel like this is a time where these players, the same thing that everybody else is doing, calling, demanding. I feel like if you have that platform, yes, utilize it for it. Right now, if not ever, this is the time that I feel it should be utilized again with a list of demands that we need. We talk about it all the time with our politicians, locally and across the country, setting those expectations. I feel like they can do that in these different sports right now. And us as a people trying to really stop being so unfocused. I remember last year, correct me if I'm wrong, we were supposed to be done with I.E. Gucci, for example, who, was very unthoughtful and very idiotic in a ad that they put out with a kid with a monkey shirt or whatever it was. It was just, it was really disrespectful. And, I still see people at the Gucci store, we need to really focus on how we spend our dollar. If at no other time right now is the time to really think about where and how you spend your dollar. And I know that's kind of getting off the topic a little bit because I'm talking about the NFL and the protest, but I'd
Mhm.
like to see that. And the last sport I want to bring in on this, and it's funny because when people are making these demands, we're seeing swift movement. And I
Mhm.
think the NASCAR, for an example, there's a black NASCAR driver named Bubba, ironically, who said, hey, you know, NASCAR as a black driver in this sport, and I've been to a few different NASCAR racetracks, and that Confederate flag
Mhm.
is flown so proudly that I personally was not comfortable in either one of the times when I was in there for that reason. One time I was fortunate enough where I was actually on the inside field. So basically what that is the track is oval or
Mhm.
circular, and I had opportunity to watch the race from in the middle. Totally different experience from being in the stands, and I did both. And you know, NASCAR obviously, you know, is real strong in the South, but those Confederate flags are everywhere. And I know for me, when I see that flag, how it makes me feel and how I automatically view the person with it. I don't care if it's a bumper sticker. I don't care if it's a little decal in your back window. When I see that flag, I immediately feel like not only does this person racist, but they're also not also, but over and beyond that, they're willing to do any and everything to stand up for that flag.
Mhm.
Uh, so, you know, me personally, I'm very uncomfortable when I see that flag. And I'll be honest, not mad, sometimes scared, you know,
Yeah.
because we're out here and you know, I've seen some pretty big ones. I'm talking about bigger than most American flags that fly at businesses and throughout our great country. I
Well,
see those flags.
to just real quick on the flag, I think everybody in the South is not hip to the history of the flag, which is a part of the issue. Which I'm thinking, I know you would believe that they all know what the flag represent, but in some circles in the South, the flag is represented as Southern pride and being proud of where you're from and standing up for what's right. And it kind of got these values behind it that are not sincere for what it really is. And some people really don't know. Um, White people that I know, they didn't know exactly what it meant. And when I explained where I was coming from with the flag, then they kind of took it a little bit differently, hearing it from me and saying what I thought it represented based off the history that I know. So we're not even taught history the same.
Oh,
So
of
and
course not.
for Southerners and people from like Michigan and the Midwest like us. So
Right.
like to me, that flag represents an overthrow of the U.S. government. It's treason. It's the side of what caused the Civil War because they wanted slaves and they wanted to keep empowering and enriching themselves off the backs of
Exactly.
slavery. So that's
Exactly.
what it means to
Fought
me.
hard for that. They didn't want to
Yeah.
get those slaves up.
Yeah, so if you don't want to have to pay wages to 300 people you got on the plantation, you know how much money you're gonna lose. So obviously they was living, a hell of a lifestyle, and they didn't want to give that up. But that ultimately, caused a civil war where they lost the war. So it's treasonous in nature to fly the flag of a country that left or the Confederate that ultimately succeeded from the United States and went to war against the country. So
And
I don't know
lost.
how or why it's even allowed in this country to have that flag and fly that flag, even if it is a part of the history. It really shouldn't be something that's celebrated to me, but that's just my opinion.
Well, that's not an opinion. You bring us some great facts. And that brings me to my last part I want to talk about on that and just get your opinion on it. Because I feel that the people who support that flag, uh, just because of the rumblings, there was one NASCAR guy who immediately quit. He
Hmm.
drove NASCAR in the truck series. And I just thought it was great because he went on his Twitter and said, I refuse to be part of a country that won't let me, and I'm paraphrasing because he didn't say this, but he said this. He said they won't let me have my racist views and be able to present those. You know, it's the American thing. I should be able to fly my flag regardless of what it represents. And NASCAR responded and said, first of all, I had to Google your ass to even know who you was.
Damn.
But you and your dozens of fans won't be missed.
Wow.
I said, wow.
Yeah, that
Uh,
just flat out represent hatred to me. It represent, racism. It represents um just evil to me in some aspects. So I don't really necessarily um feel comfortable around people that represent that, because to me it's a power thing to them. It's something that they want to hold, over other people as an intimidation factor of
exactly.
having that flag and saying that this is, the power that I represent, and we willing to do anything to maintain superiority. That's what it means to me when I see it, when I see
And
people.
if I had a bell right now, I swear I would ring it because obviously we've been doing this a long time, and we're
Right.
doing it from our homes. We talked briefly before the podcast and the production meetings, but you just said something right there that is so key. You said they hold this flag to intimidate and try to, you know, give people fears. When they hold that flag up, it's typically middle-aged, younger white men who, with their souped up pickup trucks, and I'm not stereotyping, I just don't know a lot of black guys, maybe down south, but when I see it right here in good old Metro Detroit, it's usually flying from some big pickup truck with supersized tires on it. Uh, but again, without getting into those details, my point is you said that they're willing to do anything for that flag.
Right.
And my concerns moving forward and where we have to really continue to band together is, I foresee things getting worse before they get better because of how swift we're taking things away from individuals. I mean, it's almost like if you took a spoiled little kid and all of a sudden they had to go over somebody's house where they got to follow rules that they never had to follow before. We know what happens. That
Right.
child tends to throw what's called a tantrum when they don't get their way.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, and I'm gonna just rip the band-aid off and say this shit because it's on my mind. I'm concerned that a lot of those individuals, those white men who have felt that they are the superior beings in this country, are going to have an uprising. They're not going to take this standing down, sitting down. They're going to fight just like they fought back then for this flag. They're going to continue to do things like we seen with the gentleman down there in Georgia,
Yeah.
being hunted down by 3 individuals and killing them.
Well, I mean,
Not 2, not just the father and the son, but the
yeah,
guy who was video recording as well.
they
So
fighting
I said,
right now, even on social media, where you see I'm in several little groups and I'm seeing people
absolutely.
pissed off that they getting fired for posting racist material. Like, don't be a fucking asshole. You start there. You know what I mean? If you got racist shit in your phone, you fucking racist to me. Like, I post memes all day. Anybody that follow me, I got some funny shit to put up. But
Right.
none of it racist. Like, I don't just have racist shit on hand about other people. I don't do that. And I'm not worried about getting fired because of what I post. Like, that's retarded. If you gotta worry about getting fired for what you post, you fucked up. And that's just my opinion on it. You just a terrible fucking person, and you probably deserve everything you get.
Right. But just my point in bringing that up is just our listeners continue to be careful. I'm not trying to spark a all-out war. I know I don't personally engage anybody unless they engage me. When I see things, I get mad in the grocery store because they got lines, arrows in the store saying one way down this aisle and vice versa. And I swear people can't read, don't listen to that. But I'm not getting ready to stop somebody in the aisle like I'm fucking Karen and be like, you're walking down this aisle the wrong way. I'm going to just, hurry up and pass them and keep it moving. But people just, I would say continue to push forward. I feel like this is the best movement we've had in my lifetime in trying to get things taken care of. Let's be smart. Let's continue to be the creative people that we are and create, opportunities for one another. But by all means, I'm not suggesting that we bow down, but just be careful. Put yourself in a situation where you don't get caught slipping. Yes, we should be able to go wherever we want, but I know there's little pockets within the Metro Detroit area where the racism is strong. And I'm not talking about way out in Howell someplace. I'm talking about right here in good old Metro Detroit. Just from some of the comments that some of these police officers are making in regards to, like you said, posts that they're making, the sheriff in Shelby Township, the commissioner in Warren tried to say that this gentleman who was driving an Amazon truck and parked on the wrong side of the street and his wheel was too far away from the curb, and he'd been getting a lot of complaints. They thought it was okay to tackle down a Amazon driver, and I shouldn't say tackle down because there was more to it, but to approach him, what the word I like to use, I've heard it before, it's called probable cause. So the probable cause behind why they felt they needed to interact with this gentleman is because he parked on the wrong side of the street. Did I say it was an Amazon guy by chance? He wasn't in a marked Amazon truck, but everybody know that white box van is fucking Amazon delivery guys. He got out with an Amazon shirt, hat, and he had on this little vest and a package in his hand. And the cop said he told him not to park like that, and the guy ran and dropped the package off and did it anyway. So I feel like he was doing this shit to be, like, because he was just pissed off. But I find it ironic that right now, anybody know, as hard as it is to get your FedEx packages from over there at that old park office, you be happy as hell when you see the Amazon truck come with your packages, because that's how a lot of us do our shopping for many things. But I just thought it was interesting, my point being that right here locally, we have police chiefs, people that are, the Shelby Township sheriff said, there's no way they'd be on the freeway. If I had anything to do with it, they'll get the raft, rubber bullets and all, the same things that our president comments on. So we got people right here in these communities that feel a certain way. And I just feel like we're going to get targeted even more than we have in the past in some of these communities. And just, try to be calmer than you normally would as we get through these. Let's stay together. Again, I'm not telling people to lay down and just take it. For any of us Black people that have encountered the police, what white people don't understand is when these officers, a lot of time, when they do pull us over and they do want to frisk us, I don't know if it's a game for them, but what a lot of people not understanding with us Black men and why we buck back with the system, and I'm gonna just break it down and be specific. Say that word fast 3 times. These cops have a bad habit of wanting to grab us by our nutsack. And all my brothers out there that have had encounters with the cops know that that's like, it's almost like, do y'all get points for that? Do you get off on it? So the way they like to manhandle, oh, and by the way, if they ain't grabbing your fucking nutsack, they putting their knee in your neck. Some of these habits that the authorities have toward just Black men is unbelievable. So for anybody that sees us struggling with the police and can't understand why we don't like them putting their forearm in our neck or their knee in the back of our neck and then immediately wanting to grab us by our private parts, talking about they frisking us, looking for weapons. What if every time a female was pulled over, the officer had to grab the boobs?
Well, there's ways you're supposed to be searched, and if somebody's grabbing your balls, they're not necessarily searching you.
And I'm not saying it happened on every situation.
So here's the thing. So when you're being searched, obviously they're gonna check your body and your arms, and then they check the waistband, front and back. Check both legs, and when you go up in between somebody's leg, you're only supposed to use this piece right here to make sure there's no weapon there. You
And
know
it
what
was,
penis feel like if you a man, because you a man, you got one. So you know it's not a gun. So if somebody doing a bunch of filling around, file a complaint. You were being touched.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's
But by the time you buck from that, you
yeah,
got so much more shit you dealing with, because now it's a knee to the neck or whatever. They just real disrespectful in how we get treated by officers. We see it. And again, I'm not saying that's the only reason, because there's a bunch of nut grabbers out there. That's
it
not
is.
what I'm saying.
It is.
I'm
And
saying that
you know,
on
unfortunately,
more than one occasion,
that's true.
cops have did shit like this. And it's very frustrating to us. So it's almost the reason why they don't let male officers supposedly search female uh, people that are being arrested. You know, you get a female officer in, because just certain places that you shouldn't, as a man, be, searching on a woman. That's
Right.
law. And I assume every police department in the country.
Mhm.
But just the way that they handle us and that they touch us is why we're so frustrated and evil. And again, the manhandling in situations that don't call for it. My tire wasn't close enough to the curb. All of a sudden turned into you wrestling me down. And their thing was, well, he asked for his ID multiple times. Which, by the way, the prosecutor of the city of Warren would not accept the case. So slap in the face to that chief of police that, said they was bringing, I think, 11, or no, they had some crazy amount of charges they was charging this guy with. Some 23-year-old kid, never been in trouble. Not that it matters, because you don't know that while you was doing what you were doing, but just the fact that these things are continuing to happen is just frustrating. And the way they try to justify it. See, look, from this angle, we asked him for his ID. Why are you even bothering that man that is working? He wasn't sitting on somebody's porch smoking a joint and cussing at people. We all know those guys are overworked. They got a ton of packages they got to deliver if they want to get home before the sun go down at 10 o'clock, when they started at 7 in the morning. So they run. I literally see uh, Amazon drivers get out of the truck and run the package to your door. And that's the only way they can stay on schedule, is they have to literally run. So for this cop to pull that gentleman over and start this process, because he wasn't on a main street, he was on a
Right.
residential street.
Mm.
And I saw the truck. Other vehicles could get by because other vehicles were riding by as he was being tackled to the ground.
Right.
The point is, before people judge us and say we should just do what the authorities tell us to do, know the history behind some of the things that these gentlemen do. I saw something that said, police officers, do me a favor and uh, uphold the law. You're not the law. You don't make the judgment and the decision out there on the street. And too many times that's what's happening.
I think it's, for me personally, expressing that to people on the job. I'm not here to determine your guilt. That's not my job. I'm a part of the process. When you're an officer, you're just a part of the process. Your
Absolutely.
job is to enforce laws. And if somebody accused of something, you got to lock them up, then that person has their day in court. They had a opportunity to tell their side of the story. And that's how you should approach everybody, regardless of what they did or how you feel about what they did or what they accused of. And then, that way that kind of keep your emotions in check when you're dealing with people. And,
And I
you're
know
not
that's
doing
easier
things.
said than done sometimes,
Yeah.
but I just remember being responsible at a retail store, being in charge, and we had a returns desk.
Mm-hmm.
Customers would bring in returns, and we would, in exchange for that product, we would give them their money back. And
Yeah.
As time went on, it started being a store credit because things got so out of hand with the amount of theft. People would go and take stuff right off the shelf and go up to the return desk and return it. When
Mm-hmm.
you're on different drugs and different things, you take advantage of something like that. That's all I got to do is go in there and find something for a couple $100 and sneak it past everybody and go right up to the return desk and return it. And I used to tell the employees up there all the time, yes, there are people who come in here with bad intentions. And I just think of it, and I tell the story very brief and quickly. I had an assistant manager who went up to the return desk because somebody was returning a how-to book that they had purchased from this particular retailer. And number one, the employee who called the manager up there felt that the customer had purchased that book only to go and do the project. And once the project was over, they wanted to return that book and get their money back. So the employee was upset because they felt that's what the customer's doing. And in turn, the manager, the assistant manager came up there and was just as upset. And altercation, of course, started because they told, and the book was $9.95. And they told this customer, you're not returning this book. You already did your project with it, so no, you're not returning it. So I get called up there as the general manager and assess the situation. I said, well, let me see the book. Is it pages? Did they rip the pages out that they was working with? Or is the book in any way damaged?
Mm-hmm.
You could see that the book had been opened up to ceramic tile.
Mm-hmm.
So no pages were missing, no damage to the book. 20 other people could have purchased this book and did their project and wouldn't have had any problems, not even a fingerprint, but you could just tell those pages had been turned to and held open. So my thought on this was, and I got a point here, my thought on this was, okay, if they came in here and bought the book, where do you think they bought the supplies for the job? And do you think they bought more than $9.95 worth of supplies to do the job? And I didn't have this conversation in front of the customer. I pulled that assistant manager and the employee aside, and they both kind of looked at me. I'm like, do you think that they spent more money on products to do the job that they used that book with than the $9.95 that the book cost? I said, it's a yes or no answer. And of course, both of them said yes. I said, my point is this. You guys, number one, are making a big scene about somebody who rented a book to do a project and spent all of the money in here with us. I said, not only did you harass that person who's a great customer spending money with us, what type of precedence did you set for all of the other customers that were standing up there, whether they were there to return something or whatever? Because the customer got a little loud and just, couldn't believe that they were this, his exact words, fucking stupid. But my point is this. Sometimes people get so held up in the process of what's right and wrong that they don't look at the overall big picture. I'd rather people come in and rent that book and don't damage it for $10 and spend hundreds and thousands of dollars on projects and then bring that book back when they're done so that I could give it to another person that's going to spend thousands of dollars and complete their project. And it just was, they couldn't grasp it at the time. But in that situation, both of them thought that they were doing the company a favor and saving them money by having this altercation. And my point is, so many times people take on the responsibility, i.e. law enforcement, that they are the law. As you stated so accurately is what the role of that officer on scene is. It's no different than homicide police or police that have specific duties. Their job is to do specific things within their role. And in none of those is the on-scene police officers going to prosecute and put somebody in jail. Just like those employees had no right to try to prosecute this customer who rented a book from us and had a receipt for it. Had the book for less than 30 days, but hey, you used this book, is what they felt was wrong.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
So I'll say this, moving past that, like we spoke a lot today on organizing and empowering each other, boycotting and things like that. Um, Economic empowerment is big. And anybody that's listening, I hope y'all understand that your money is worth something. And again, these companies are going bankrupt because you're not out there spending your money. So keep that in mind in who you do business with. So if you know somebody that's in business or somebody that's doing business, support them. If you got a local, uh, person in business, support your local entrepreneurs and support, your family and friends that's doing business. Support them and help them out because spending money with them will help us all in the long run if we all working together with each other. I think that's the ultimate goal of,
Exactly.
empowering each other and making sure, that we keep that money circulating between us before it goes to other places. So
Exactly.
just keep that in mind. And again, if if you invest in things like that, hey, one share at a time. One share at a time, put your money up and just keep putting it up and let it build over time because you are not going to get anything letting your money sit in the bank. That is not how we build wealth. That is not how anybody builds wealth in this country. And if you think that's the case, all you got to do is look at the numbers. We historically do not have money in Black communities because we are consumers. We are not entrepreneurs. We don't sell anything. We always buy stuff. We always want Jordans and we want what we see on TV. We want materialistic things. And those things ultimately have us in debt and all the other businesses are making money. So I think we need to check ourselves on, what we spending and what we buying and who we giving our money to, what those companies represent. And if you have a history of spending with a certain company, buy some shares in that company. Be part owner in that company and let them pay you for servicing their business. I think that's the way to go moving forward.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more on that. I know and some of it comes from, it's not just what we learned here as residents in our communities. What we have to realize and understand is some of these things are culturally instilled in us from years and years ago. For us as Blacks, when we look back on our ancestors and all the way back to Africa, some of the things that we do is because of those things. Looking at our kings and queens many years ago and the amount of gold and different things. But you could bring up such a great point when we say, hey, let's change the narrative. Let's be a little more smarter with how we spend our dollar. Because I'm gonna tell a quick story. That we talked about at the beginning. Businesses are back open and up.
Mhm.
Things are starting to move a little bit more than they had been. I won't use the word back to normal because we know it won't be that. But the amount of lines outside of the Foot Locker and the Champs and the different stores with these material things that we've come to love so much, while we're uniting and trying to come together in solidarity, that's some great points. And if you are going to be that person that need to wear the gold and you need the nice shiny things, moving forward, support one another. I'm not going to tell you don't spend because we know how hard that is for individuals. And I know in many cases, when I've had, uh, more income than I currently do, I spend more. You
Mhm.
know, right now I think Amazon is the death of me, even though I just said good things about them earlier. But I can't stay off of that damn Amazon. But I feel like a big percentage of the things I need. But if nothing else, my point is, as we move forward, the things that you just talked about, being smarter consumers, that's really key. So many things we dealt without because during the shutdown, you couldn't go to the mall. You couldn't
Mhm.
do a lot of things. People who are able to still work, I know quite a few individuals who, was like, wow, man, I can't believe how much money I blow just on a day-to-day basis out here in these streets.
Mhm.
So when people say, don't talk to me about investing or saving money, I holler BS. I don't want to hear it. We can do better because we need to do better. We need to educate ourselves. You know, we want to be treated equal and we deserve it, whether we do or don't make those changes. But within that, let's also commit to making some of those changes as we demand these changes from the way we're treated. I feel like we also should, you know, really think about and assess how we were moving before and now going forward, how we'll move.
Right.
There's a lot of things I don't think I'll do anymore like I did before.
Mm.
You know, how can I, you know, better assist in my community? And before I forget, something we always offer on the podcast, or not always, we've offered in the past for any of those Black-owned businesses. Right now, we're offering free shout outs on our podcast. We got a lot of people listening and watching us now. You may not see it on a particular platform, but you know, we're starting a bubble here. And I say that only to say that, you know, we want to give those opportunities for any of our friends, family, or listeners that have a business. You know, if you got something you want us to, you know, you want to give us a little quick 20-second elevator speech or advertisement for your business, or if you just want us to shout out how they can get in contact with you and where you're located and your website, we can do that for you as well. And you know, we utilize this platform for a lot of things, but our number one goal has always been to help people in some way, shape, or form, and we'll continue to do that. So please get that information to us. We've talked about some other businesses, and we'll continue to do that.
All right.
But then I've got some other obligations this evening. If you want to, let's get ready to wrap it up.
Okay.
Just kind of summarize what we talked about today. Obviously, we gave updates on the coronavirus.
Mhm.
These numbers are real. Let's not lose sight of what we need to be doing when it comes to that. You know, continue to stay safe. Good thing is now I'm seeing hand sanitizer. I'm seeing Clorox wipes. Not everywhere, but I saw some right near my house here in the city I live in. So those things are starting to get back on the shelves. Make sure that you continue those cleaning processes. It's just a way we should live anyway, you know, to prevent the spread of anything. So we talked about that. Please continue to stay safe and do things smart. Don't let the government dictate to you that you're going to go back to a bar and be hanging out in there with a bunch of people, because I know that's not something that is on my immediate future. I don't think I'll be sitting down in a bar having a drink for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Then we talked about the most recent events in Atlanta and how unfortunate that situation turned out with the gentleman at the Wendy's. But
Right.
again, I'll add that there is footage of a white woman starting that fire for those other racists that think that that's all we do, which I've talked about why that happens on other podcasts, but that's not today. We also talked about the sports and how I talked about how I feel that, you know, they can utilize that platform to make some huge changes. NBA, NFL, and NASCAR, who made a huge change. I would feel a little more comfortable about going to a NASCAR event. Not just yet, but if I was to attend one, not feeling like I'm out there in the midst of a bunch of racist white men who don't want us there.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about that. Then we also, you know, talked about people getting frisked by the police. I share some views that may have been funny, but I guarantee you, if I talk to 10 black men that have been searched by the police, I would be safe in saying that more than half of them would say that they've encountered exactly what I talked about. Police officers doing too much within that frisking of us. And I don't think it's some sexual type of thing or anything like that. I just think they don't care. and
Mm-hmm.
they try to handle us, and that's probably how I should articulate it. They don't care how they search and how they touch us. Is my
Mm-hmm.
main point. Not so much about the specifics of that area, but I know I've been violated like that. We're like, really? But again, we talked about that, as well as which was really important. We talked about, I have a concern as we continue to take these things away from these uh, people who thought they were superior to us just because of the color of their skin. As we continue to take their toys away from, or not toys, but their things that they feel are important to them. We know that a flag means a lot to some individuals, and they will fight for that flag, right, wrong, and indifferent. So continue to be careful out there. Know that it's probably going to get worse before it get better as we tackle on some of these deep-rooted racist thoughts that people have. We've seen kids on the internet, having a conversation with their parents, white kids, with their parents, and trying to educate them on things that they've just said and done. And, so
Mm-hmm.
people are listening and understand, but just know that this is, we're still 13% of the population, and there is going to be a lot of people that don't want to give up their racist ways of life without a fight. So, eat your Wheaties, do your push-ups, i.e., arm yourselves if needed, learn how to defend yourself, uh, make sure you're defending your home. If you need more input on what I'm talking about there, we offer classes on that. So those are the things that we talked about today that I feel was really important, and we want to get that message out. Dan, any last thoughts from you today before we wrap up?
Yeah, my thoughts are this. As we continue to move forward, I would encourage each and every one of you to start learning about investments, learning how to invest, learning how to put a little bit up at a time, which will accumulate over time. It's something simple that all of us can do to improve, our overall economic situations. Um, as far as, the uprisings and all those things, I think that requires an organized stance from a group with, I would say, the respect of the community so that things could be done in a proper and professional manner. I saw the Detroit News post something about 11 demands that people had, which most of which were completely ridiculous in my opinion. I don't know why they took this particular group of people and decided to do that. That, in my opinion, was disrespectful to the community as a whole, because I don't think the Detroit community as a whole had those particular issues on their minds. So I think that when you live in a certain city or wherever you're from, get involved, get engaged in what those requests should be from the police or from your local uh, elected officials, and make sure that your voice is heard, or collectively if you got a block club or whatever the case may be. Make sure these requests are organized and they make sense, and not the news pumping out stuff that's counterproductive to what we are trying to achieve. Other than that, I would say that everybody be safe out there. Um, like I said, the numbers are down, but they are rising all over the country, and they may be down because we were doing that social distancing that we needed to do and being safe here in Michigan. Thank you to everybody that watched the podcast. Thank you for everybody in the comment section. As always, if you got something you want to say, drop it in the comment section, or you want to come on and talk with us, that's cool too. We appreciate um, everything that people say. We had a guy a couple of weeks ago in the comment section disagreeing with almost everything we said, and we took an entire segment to address his concerns and how he felt. And I have no problem with doing that at all. So um,
Right.
if you agree, or if you disagree, we welcome it. We welcome it all. So again, thank you very much, and you can reach us on any social media platform at Athena Protection Service, or catch us YouTube or replay on YouTube, and drop a comment, and we'll respond to that comment. That's all I got for everybody, and we'll see you next week. And hopefully it won't be as many issues as we continue to see going out there. And I think next week, because we don't have time today. Next week, I want to talk about people saying all lives matter, blue lives matter, and why that's disrespectful to Black Lives Matter. I think that's something we can jump off the porch with and discuss about why, saying those things and even mentioning Black on Black crime in the context of what's going on now is completely wrong, because crime happened in the vicinity of where people live, and white people kill just as many white people as Black people kill Black people. If you don't believe me, the FBI got the stats on their website. You can look it up anytime you want to, or I'll just bring it with me next week. But that's all I got right now. Again, thanks everybody for reaching out and listening to us today and getting in the comment section and talking. I appreciate that.
Also, real quick, next Sunday, for those of you that don't know, because it gets nowhere near the amount of buzz as Mother's Day. Next Sunday is Father's Day. We will do the podcast, but I'll tell you my suggestion to you, Dan, is that we do it much earlier. It will be available on our sites to look at, but we're probably going to do the podcast a little earlier next Sunday. We'll try to get that information out to you, but the goal most definitely is to do it sooner. We're probably going to be shooting towards maybe 12 or 1 in the afternoon so people can get home from church and whatnot. But before all of you dads out there, I myself have to go and man the grill ourselves. For those of us that have to, I want to give everybody opportunity to get to that, because by Sunday at 5 or 6 o'clock, I plan to be and really enjoy my Sunday afternoon. Won't necessarily be doing the podcast, but again, we're going to talk about that topic, next week's topic. We already got it lined up. Dan already put it out there. We're going to be talking about why Black Lives Matter and what that means to us and whatnot. So some great topics. So again, don't forget everybody, Soapbox Sunday is the name of the podcast. Hopefully you all like it. We tend to get on our soapbox a lot. We do this on Sundays. It made perfect sense. Again, I can't thank you all enough. And one last quick thing I'll say is we talk about finances a lot. So anybody out there that knows someone that's a financial advisor, if you could get us in touch with them, we'd love to have them come on. We'll give them however much time they feel they need just to get people started. Because we keep talking about this, and I feel like the free throws with the AAU young 9-year-olds, we need to literally start showing our community some things they can do to save. We talk about it, we want to be about it. So if you know someone that can come on and give our listeners an opportunity to listen to some quick points, some bullet points, that'd be great. But hey, man, everybody enjoy the rest of this beautiful Sunday afternoon. Thanks for watching. Cause I'll be in touch with you.
All right.
Cause there's some power washing I need Candace to get done. We'll talk about that later. But everybody have a good day. Thank you again.
All right.